Hi, and welcome back to That's Entertainment, weekly show where we look at all the interesting entertainment news from last week, this week. In this week's news, we're taking a look at the Gothenburg Film Festival's Nostradamus report, which is the industry insight and crystal ball into the future report that's released every year. I think we're up to the 8th one now, and they're generally very interesting to read through. Lots of insights, lots of predictions on what's going to be changing. So we're going to pick up the main themes that we got from the report and give our own analysis. So breaking down each of the main points of the report, let's start with the first one, which is this idea of situating the industry within the new reality that's coming about through the impact of the pandemic. So their analysis is the pandemic will continue for another 2 to 3 years, or continue to affect the industry for another 2 to 3 years. Which will result in structural changes that were already in progress being rapidly accelerated by the impact of the illness and the lockdowns. And that this will create even further consolidation in the future. If we're looking at what's happening with the major cinema chains, it's really just a run up to the wire in terms of who's got the budget to keep going. But I think at the end of the pandemic, those cinemas that are left standing, there will be rapid consolidation. I don't think it'll be fragmentation at all. I think it'll be last man standing, and then there will be people going out there onto the market to buy essentially businesses which are, in trouble. Which is interesting because this consolidation will likely continue after the pandemic, as businesses are severely over leveraged. There's a risk that all of a sudden 1 or 2 major global chains might go bankrupt, in which case we'll see them coming onto the market for essentially a song, and there will be some kind of venture fund put together, I'm sure, to buy these businesses back up and get them restarted. It's not the overall fundamentals of the economics of film theatrical exhibition that's really in question. It's the ability to operate under the pandemic. So these credit lines at AMC have been receiving, these are big signals to the market. There's still a belief, a willingness to invest in cinema, and not everyone's going to have the swing to be able to pull in AMC level investment. So we'll probably see some kind of feeding frenzy at the end of the lockdown as businesses need cash injections to keep going. Looking to the next point, theatrical transformations. Well, the theatrical experience and exhibition industries are definitely not dying, but they are changing. 5 years from now, fewer cinemas will definitely be operating on the current model, but I think doing quite well as more upmarket offers will be entering into the market, as we're seeing with the likes of Everyman and Picture House and their investments into the locations. I do think that cinemas, to really stand apart, have to really be focusing on the event, and actually making their cinemas a fabulous place to sit and hang out is a very good move, in my opinion. Although likely the overall film market will be diminished, theatrical exhibition will be revitalized as a dynamic and influential part of film culture. From our commentary, yes, I think a very positive future awaits cinemas that survived the COVID lockdowns. The success of IMAX and other premium cinema offerings is something that we've been highlighting for a while. And things like IMAX's international success during 2020 pre-COVID, luxury cinema brands like Everyman and Picture House, as I've mentioned before, there's a positive future, although it's going to look very, very different. So fewer cinemas will not necessarily be a bad thing if the successful ones are forward-thinking and looking at the future, as opposed to how do we survive the present. Looking at the next section, entitled At the Heart of the Industry is the Small Screen. The report claims household SVOD spend will be bigger and combined with complementary business models. We're looking at merchandising within VOD releases as opposed to film releases, product placement. We're looking at various AVOD models that are coming out now through the necessity of beginning to reflect the window of VOD services and people's budgets. The second claim is content exclusivity will not be central for all these strategies, somewhat opening up the market. And they're referring to, I think, the idea that content doesn't necessarily have to be ring-fenced by one operator or one service that's bought and paid for the license. there's an opportunity for the content to be sitting in different places under different business models, which I think is very interesting, particularly for independent film. And that third point, the small screen will be the financial and quite possibly the artistic heart of the converged film and TV industry. Continuing innovation will be pushed by younger audiences choosing to consume and produce video outside of these traditional domains. Well, we saw Quibi and that failed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were onto a bad thing with that. And new social media like Snap, the way that Instagram's moved forwards, the fact that YouTube, has an incredible documentary series of programming on it that's, absolutely, a joy to behold, and very often run by very keen amateurs that are not necessarily looking to make money out of their concepts from day one. It's a very interesting place to be right now. It's pretty obvious that spending on SVOD and VOD and AVOD will all increase at a stellar rate. We've been seeing it pretty much over the entire time during lockdown. But content exclusivity will be central to the online offering. Look at the huge financial commitment from Netflix, Disney, and HBO to fund premium exclusive content as their USP. Yes, revenue from the small screen will become greater and more significant. Yes, the industry must follow younger audiences to the platforms that they gravitate to, and must also be prepared to produce content in formats those platforms will require. So it's going to be a very interesting future. We're not necessarily going to be locked into our TVs. Part of our episodes might end up being something that we consume on our mobile. What's the screen format? How is it going to be shot? What's the storyline? If it comes through an app, will it be interactive? The transmedia conversations that are going to spark up again from reading this report. And I think that's an interesting, way that we could be telling stories again in the future.